protect religious liberty, including for the most persecuted religion on the planet today. It's called Christianity. And let us safeguard our sovereignty and cherish qualities that have made each of our nations so special, incredible, and extraordinary.
Yes, you woke up to his speech today at the UN, and you, like most others, probably found it to be a terrible speech. Other UN leaders laughing at times, him going off onto tangents that didn't make sense. But that's not what I want to talk about, because that's not what this page is about. It's not about politics. Whether you like him, whether you hate him, I don't really care. What I care about, as far as it is, as it pertains to this particular station, this particular platform, is the fact that why he just go up there and lie? Why does he continue to state the party line of Christianity and Christian nationalism that perpetuates this lie that Christianity is the most persecuted religion in the world? Ha! So basically, this information comes from one source. That source is called like Open Doors. And Open Doors is a Christian organization that tracks countries and issues and incidences that happen to Christians. Now, do they track what happens to Jews, what happens to Muslims, what happens to Hindus, what happens to Shinto, what happens to Buddhism? No, they don't track anybody else's information. If persecution is happening to another group, they will not track that information. They will not release that information. They keep that all to themselves, or they just ignore it completely. They only talk about countries where Christians are persecuted. Now, let's rein in some of the persecution as to what they're talking about, because based on the pure Pew research, Christianity is not persecuted in the way that they will make you think. They make you think persecution means that, oh, these people are being beaten, these people are being murdered, these people are being killed, that the 380 million Christians in other countries and non-Christian countries, that they're going through so much turmoil and being beaten brutally. It's not the case. Not the case. What the Open Door, what they look at is they compare Christianity and how it is done in America and how it's done in Europe, and then they compare that to the rest of the world. So let me give you an example. The fact that in America, you can open up a Christian church of whatever denomination, non-denomination at that, you can open up a Christian church no matter what it is. File your 501c3, and you can begin having church services in your house. You can then build it up to where you're in a plaza, and then have your own building, and you can go out and you can proselytize to people and stand on the street corner and preach and all these sorts of things. Well, see, in Saudi Arabia, it is illegal for you to have a church. There are 0 Christian churches in Saudi Arabia. So for the number of Christians who are in Saudi Arabia, and most of them are expat who live on compounds where the expat can live based under their laws. Like, so I went to visit an expat compound in Saudi Arabia back in 1990 as we was going through the Suez Canal. On the compound, women can drive. On the compound, women can wear shorts. On the compound, women don't have to cover their hair. On the compound, they have a distillery because alcohol is illegal in Saudi Arabia. So on the compound, they have church services. Outside the compound, the women have to dress accordingly. They cannot drive. You cannot have alcohol, and you cannot find a church outside the compound. So for the number of people who are there in Saudi Arabia, they are being religiously persecuted. Now, he spoke about each country maintaining their sovereignty and their diversity, and that is what makes the world beautiful. But then you repeat dogmatic information that does not respect the sovereignty and diversity of another country. Let me give you another example. In China, there are Christian churches. There are Muslim mosques. There are other Buddhist temples. But here's the deal. If your Muslim mosque is not sanctioned by the CCP, if your Christian church is not sanctioned by the CCP, then you cannot have a church or a mosque. You cannot have a Jewish temple if it's not sanctioned by the CCP. And for the long and short of it, it just means that they have to make sure that you're not providing any messaging that goes against what they do as a government. You can't be anti-CCP. Oh, Chinese Communist Party. You can't be outside the CCP. So there is a Muslim group. I cannot say the name of it. Starts with a U. They are outside of uh, that legislation. So therefore, they're persecuted. They are one of they are harshly persecuted. But the worst persecuted group in China is Tibetan Buddhism. If you have not been paying attention over the last few years, the Chinese say that once this Dalai Lama dies, that they're going to choose a new Dalai Lama and it'll be one from China. While the Tibetan Buddhists are saying, no, we're going to do it the normal way we normally do it. But because of their political issues with Tibet, the Tibetan Buddhism is the most persecuted group in China. Same thing can be said of North Korea. That North Korea, you have to have government sanction in order for you to have a church or to have a mosque or anything else. That's the beautiful sovereignty that they all have. But of course, this Open Door Christian organization wants people to be able to have the freedom of religion as you may have in other countries like America, and then they won't count you as persecuted. They look in countries like Africa, like Nigeria. Nigeria has issues with half the country being Muslim, half the country being Christian. They have constantly been fighting each other over these religious views. They do not count the number of deaths that Muslims incur in Nigeria. They only count the number of deaths or assaults that occur to Christians. So the information is deeply skewed towards Christianity as far as them being persecuted. But most of what they are calling persecution is their inability to proselytize the people and their inability to build a church whenever, however they want to. If you were to go to Dubai and you try to hand out Bibles, you will be taken to jail. If you go to Iran and you try to hand out Bibles, you will go to jail. If you put a cross on a building in Dubai, you will go to jail. So they call that Christian persecution in a country that is a theocracy under Islam. So how are you calling it Christian persecution? It's the beauty of their sovereignty. And as far as FBI records are concerned, ever since 1991, every year, the Jewish population has reigned supreme as the most persecuted group in America based on hate crimes. Not Christians in America based on hate crimes. The Christians aren't being persecuted in America. But Jews are the biggest group that has the most hate crime based on their religion as any other group in America. And there are certain European countries where you have the same outcome, that they are the ones with the most hate crimes committed towards them. And if we really want to talk about who's being persecuted right now, then all we got to do is look no further than Israel, and we will see that the Palestinians, those Muslims, are being persecuted at a much harsher rate than any Christian that you can think of. I don't see Christians having bombs dropped on their heads. I don't see Christian children sitting in their homes and bombs blowing up in their homes. You don't see these sorts of things happening in America or in Africa or in China or India or any other place. These things don't happen. You see that in Palestine. So the most persecuted group right now in the world are the Muslims in Palestine than any other group of people. There is absolutely no way you can look, there's no information that you can be able to find that will disengage that thought process from my brain. It's just not going to happen because that is just the simple truth of the matter. But Christians will continue to rant and rave about this doctrine just because you go to Saudi Arabia for a job and you have to live on a compound, and now you can only worship your Jesus on your compound. You can't go proselytize. It's their beautiful sovereignty that should be protected. That makes the diversity such a wonderful thing. So always remember in this one that you have to go back and do deeper research from just a statement that someone's making. Because I had a Christian come onto my podcast and make that same claim yesterday. And that claim, it was invalidated yesterday, just as it's being invalidated today. You got to do the research instead of just listening to your pastor or whomever else. And in this case, the President of the United States making a statement that is unfounded and is misconstruing the data. So y'all have a great day, and always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations.